Oblivion, a game with the sole focus of using light and darkness as not only a deterrent for enemies, but as a weapon. The game revolves around you as the player, stranded in a cursed world which has been consumed by darkness, with the sole purpose of fighting your way through the dark to discover what lies at the end of the tunnel. The player fends their way through the darkness with the help of a flashlight. Your flashlight is, however, very unstable and needs batteries to function. These batteries can be found throughout the world, and this also means that the player will need to manage their resources so that they have enough light for any trouble they might encounter throughout the world. The player gets their first taste of enemy interaction later on in the tutorial, with the first type of enemy called an Umbra. Umbras are creatures who thrive within the curse of the world. They love to hide within the shadows, and are afraid of any traces of light. The player can use their flashlight to deter the Umbra away from them, providing the player a feeling of protection. But not for long, as the player's battery is slowly deteriorating. And so a new item and extension of the core mechanic is introduced, the flash charge. Flash charges are equipped into the player's light source and have one-time use. The player can collect them throughout the world and set them off, killing any surrounding enemies caught within the beam. Enemies, due to their nature, cannot withstand the sudden burst of light thrown at them. As the game progresses, so did the core mechanic have to grow and adapt to the game. The player comes across a lantern, which uses the same batteries and flash charges as discussed previously. The lantern provides an omnidirectional light, deterring enemies in front as well as behind the player. This is useful for situations where the player has enemies approaching them from both directions, with the caveat of the beam being a little smaller, allowing Umbras to get closer to you. The lantern provides an omnidirectional flash charge too, although the range is not as good as the flashlight's flash charge. A new enemy called a Lux is also introduced to build on top of the Umbra and provide a variation in gameplay and pace. Luxes are quite the opposite of Umbras and will race towards any traces of light. They cannot stand the darkness and will remain still if they cannot see where to go. The player can use this to their advantage by turning off their light and running away from the Lux, or, with a unique adaptation to gameplay, use a flash charge to kill them and gain a bit of battery life upon their death. A feature which was added in later development of the game is the implementation of a reactive environment. A first integration of this is a lightning strike, which cannot be summoned by the player, but rather the environment provides this unique mechanic to the player. If used correctly, this can kill the enemies who are nearby in the same way as a flash charge. A second instance of making use of the environment are falling logs. The first occurrence of this is more so an introduction to the player that the environment changes can be used by them. Later on, the player can push this log over, or wait a bit, lure the Luxes off the ledge, saving your precious flash charges, and then progressing. The game ends with a unique story surprise, which I'll leave to you to find out if you decide to pick up the game and play it.